Boom. Hey now, and how are you doing? Want to welcome you to the next episode of Peace, Love, and Bring a Bat. Man, today we're going to have a real good conversation with my friend CJ. We're going to talk about a whole bunch of things, but we're going to talk definitely about, keeping your eyes wide open and also eyes wide shut. So let's go talk about it. How are you doing this morning, CJ?
Hey, what's up, David, man? Thanks for having me on.
I appreciate it so much. We connected. The social media and all that is really incredible. And I saw your profile and the things that you're doing are incredible. Why don't you tell the audience a little bit about what you do and what you see? And
Hey, my name is Corwin, CJ Moneyway Johnson. I am the host of the CJ Moneyway Show. Do a podcast, writing books, actually do music through AI. I know a lot of people don't like that, but I use it for my advantage, nothing to try to put mainstream or things of that nature. I've learned to use it to do my outros, intros, mid rolls. Save you a lot of money too. I want to become the next fiber of myself. And so I dibble and dabble in some of them things, man. I've learned that podcasting it creates great relationships, like how me and you met. You meet people, connections, networks, man, and it just opens up a lot of doors. And so that's what I'm doing right now. I'm writing a book right now. Currently writing a book, hoping to be out soon, called Planting Seeds with CJ. You had to check that out.
yeah, no, definitely. And we have a section at the end of my show that I'll ask you about planting a seed coming into the magic garden. But what really attracted me is a lot of our guests talk about the traumas. Nobody has a straight life. How do we overcome things in our lives? And that was one of the things that that attracted me. I mean, there's so much that I want to talk about, but let's start out there. So, what got you here?
Man, uh, just having I would say what got me here is from the beginning, man. Having a loving mother and father. Back in the day, we had fathers that was, they said what they meant and they meant what they said. It wasn't no tit for tat or, it was what it was. And so they showed love differently, although it was love, And
Sure.
so I would have to say that it started for me, man, from the home, from an upbringing. I think in my group, friends that I grew up with, man, it probably was only like, and I say in both neighborhoods I grew up in, it probably was only like four of us that had both parents in the household. So
Mm.
that was, that was rare to see, where you got both parents in the household. So it was structure. Not saying that I didn't deviate from the plan or I wasn't a curious little kid and doing certain things, although I had a father at home, but it was still, I guess, back then I was in hindsight, it was always discipline there. I just didn't understand what discipline was, until now, cause, and I thank my mother because the Bible says this, David say, train up a child in the way that they should go. And when they get older, they won't depart from it. And so my mother took me to church when I was younger. And then when I got older, I saw my father actually studying the Bible. You say, study to show thyself approved. He introduced me to a concordance and he had notebooks full of stuff. Matter of fact, I just took a book that he had not too long ago from my mother's house, that he had been reading. And so, now that I'm grown and things of that nature, man, a lot of things that he was telling me back then, you know, uh, with my eyes being shut, it resonates now. Now, some of the things that he used to instill in me, man, I instill in my kids too. So, that's where it all started from, man. It started from the beginning, man. It started from home.
Yeah, you need to have a great foundation, and that's why when I talk about that peace and love, that's what you need to have. That stability. Now, you mentioned something, and I know your book is called "Both Eyes Open and Both Eyes Shut." What does that
Mhm.
mean?
You know, back when I first wrote this book, and when somebody would ask me that question, I say, I give them a cockamamie answer, however I felt at the time. But now that I, have had time to marinate on it and it had time to sink in, it actually means that, man, a lot of times we see the things that we don't need to see, David. And then
Mm.
some of the things that we do need to see, We got our eyes shut too. Like we can see society today. We can see the glitz. We can see the glamour. We can see you social media where we out here trying to people out here trying to be influencers to get like viral videos and things of that nature. And people will do anything to, saying to make it, to be successful. But then we got our eyes shut to one of to me, the most important thing that we need to see, man. We got our eyes shut to the face of God. We're not trying to seek, as you said earlier, a solid foundation. So it's things that can be eliminated that we bring in that creates a unstable foundation, and the things that we need to create a solid foundation, we got our eyes shut to. And so, that's how that's how I was living a long time like that. Like the two that built the houses, one on sand and one on the rock. I was that one that was building this house on the sand all the time, man. And every time pressure, every time anything came about, that thing came crumbling down because I had my eyes shut to the most important thing that I needed to see, and that was the face of God.
Yeah, no, once you start bringing in other things, because we do have our eyes shut at many times, you know, we know those things. I call that the icta disease. I know that already, right? It's all that stuff. I know it. I don't have to do it, but it's the actions that we do it. So, I'm glad that you're a man of faith, and that's where we a lot of times we'll find it. You have to be within yourself, right? Because
Mhm.
even God, you could read all the books you want and still be that person who doesn't do anything.
Yeah.
God will meet you anywhere, and believe me, I love talking about it because I've learned it in my own life. When I did what Dave wanted to do, yeah, not so good. I've made
Yeah.
plenty of mistakes, and I got the souvenirs to prove it. But when I've aligned myself with who I am and taken the right actions, that's what's led me to the greatest heights.
Mhm. Yeah, that like you say, what was the acronym for BAT? Being authentic
Yep.
today. And
Yep.
that's the truest thing, man, is to be real with yourself. That's how you connect with your audiences. You know what I'm saying? Because people go through stuff in life. And so sometimes some people may feel like they the only ones going through that. Oh man, but they hear Dave out here with on his platform telling millions of people about the challenges that he had to face to get to where he was at. They hear CJ Moneyway talk about the challenges that he had, saying, to get where he's at today. It don't come easy, man. That's why one of mine is brick by brick. A lot of stuff, man, we building it brick by brick. When you started that podcast 6 years ago or 5 years ago, that was brick by brick. We started with no audience, nobody pushing like on social media or post or nothing. But you know what I'm saying? A lot of times, man, the fortitude, we just keep going, in life. But then we get to a point too where we, like you say, when I do things my way, when I do it and see it the way that I do it, when pressure comes about me, I may tend to run because I'm not committed to nothing. You know what I'm saying? I'm
Yep.
not committed to this. I'm not being consistent in that. You know what I'm saying? I'm getting tossed to and fro here and there. You know what I'm saying? Anytime the wind blow off, I'm going in that direction because, as they say, the grass look greener on the other side. Man, how many times did I bump my head against the wall or kicking as I start reading the Bible, kicking against the prick? So man, how many times have I walked down the wrong path in the wrong direction? Plenty of times, and I'm not perfect. I don't think none of us perfect. I still have my challenges. I still go through things that I go through, but I've learned to keep moving forward in spite of whatever situation I've been in, man. I know Paul said that back in the day. He said, I've been high. He said, I've been up, I've been down, I've been abased, and I've been abound. But I've learned to be content in whatever situation that I'm in, man. And so that's, saying that's one thing that I've learned to grow on, man. Just be content where you at. Not have, saying don't stay there once elevation start coming. Don't stay there because God will move you. You know what I'm
Yep.
saying? If you get too content, son, and he ain't called you to do something else, you're like, nah, I won't leave this job. I'm comfortable here. Guess what? You can get fired from that job. And he'll make you leave. You know what I'm saying? Like
Well,
he did Jonah in the belly of the whale. So yeah.
yeah, we never know what's going to do, and what's going to move it, because he'll give us a little nudge at times, and but we have to understand that. And I know probably the same way when you grew up, you didn't want to do it, right? It was all that ego. It was all that I got this.
Mm-hmm.
Don't worry, I'm going to do it my way, and it's going to work out. And until you were able to realign yourself to who your true self is, right? That bringing back moment, that's what really did it. So what was some of the adversity and trauma that you experienced? Because I know, that led you to it. We don't go running, even though you might have grown up with the Bible. We don't always go running to it right away.
Oh
It's
no,
the adversity that brings us back to that center.
man. At this point, before I start actually reading the Bible for myself, I want to say it had to be 1990 something, late 90s. I never forget. I was in my room. I was in the streets. I wasn't a gang bang or I wasn't a drug dealer or nothing of that nature. I've always had a 9 to 5. I grew up in the neighborhoods where things was happening or whatever, but God spared me from certain things. You know what I'm saying? Like you could they say you're a product of your environment. Maybe some things that I did take mentally, but it was some things that he shielded me from. Because one thing I didn't want to do, one thing I never wanted to do, I never wanted to go to jail. That's never been on my bucket list to be locked up. You know what I'm saying? So if you don't want to be locked up, then guess what? You don't do some of the things that'll get you locked up. You know what I'm saying? Just as simple as that. And so I was reading the Bible one day. I was on my bed, and man, I was having kids. Matter of fact, that was a turning point, David. I was having kids, not just one. I had a couple back to back, different women, and man, the pressure was hitting me. And I was sitting on the bed and I was reading. I was, called myself reading. My father came upstairs and he looked in the room and he asked me at that time. He said, "What's wrong?" I said, "Nothing." He was like, "Oh yeah, something going on." Because I turned to God. You know what I'm saying? I never forget. He came up there and he asked me that. But at the time, I wasn't thinking on that level, like, "Oh, I'm going through this and that, so I'm turning to God." But in the sense, in hindsight, now that I look back on it, that was God calling me into a moment. You know what I'm saying? Because he said that he'll never put no more on you than you can handle, than you can bear. Man, it's like I had the weight of the world on my shoulder because I couldn't even figure out my own life. My life was a total mess. And now, what I'm saying, I'm getting the news. I'm finna have a kid here. I'm finna have a kid there. I don't even think I had told my parents that I was finna, that I had these women pregnant or whatnot. And so, in yourself, you're thinking about the scrutiny that you're gonna take. How
Mm.
can I support this? How can I do that? So I was all over the place, man. And I think that was the turning point in my life that actually, not saying that it got corrected altogether. It still took some years, but it was actually the year 2000 I actually started reading the Bible for myself and accepted not accepted the Lord as my Lord and Savior, but I was baptized when I was younger. But it was at that point, man, what things started turning around. And I started seeing things a little different.
Yeah, no, yeah, the things that we did as a kid, right? Baptized earlier, or for me, bar mitzvahed. It's one of those things that you don't understand the weight then, and when you have children, right? Children will shift you a little bit differently, and you got to face yourself. So no matter when you are, it's always better to do it earlier than later, but we keep doing that. I've faced myself a lot of times, and now I'm not scared of that the outside pressures. You're gonna think of what you're gonna think. That's on you. I know who I am, and my relationship with God. I God knows who I am, right? No matter
Hmm.
what, even when you were not paying attention, you were ego. When I was kid ego, God still loved me. I still did
Hmm.
all the things. He knew what was in my heart, and he was like, "Well, that's free will, right? We have free will."
Hmm.
Now, and I think that's what the beauty of moving through some of the traumas and the things that we do is free will is also to improve ourselves. And that's why I love the podcast to hear these stories because I know you're a guy who creates platforms and you know that it's a special way to do it through storytelling creates healing.
Hmm.
How'd you get to do that? And start doing it because you've been pretty successful. I mean, I know you're also in the top 2.5% of podcasts. That is crazy. I mean, so am I. I think about it every now and then, and I'm like, man, no matter what I say, That's fact. That's not Dave fact. That's not me
Yeah,
saying I'm the best.
yeah.
That's outside people giving me, and I have to always be careful for me to make sure it's not ego driven. But I'm like,
Mhm.
there's somebody out there who hears it. I'm always amazed when I see how many downloads or a video that you're like, man, how'd 500 people watch it? Nobody gave me a like, but
Yeah.
500 people watched it, even for 5 seconds. There was something about it that they wanted to hear. How do you feel about that?
I mean, I'm like you, and correction. You know, what I'm saying like you say, I don't look into it too much, but it's the top 2% now. You know what I'm saying? I toot my own horn, but like you said, the proof is in the putting it. It's there. You know what I'm saying? A lot of times we may shy away from it because we don't want to seem too braggadocious, or you know what I'm saying, or sitting up there like, oh yeah, I got CJ Moneyway Show top 2% globally, this and that. I don't want to come off like that because it's not about the numbers, really. It's not about podcast standards. It's about what you putting out there. And so that's something that, yeah, okay, that comes with the territory, just like money come with the territory, just like Joe Rogan, he got all the subscriptions and things of that nature. So he get the $100 million contract, $100 million. So it comes with the territory. But like with me, my voice, man, it started when I was younger, David. I've always been a leader. You know what I'm saying? I've always been vocal. I was in acting. I was in drama when I was younger. Things of that nature. Played sports, and so it was always there. It just never haunted. And, like one thing that I've learned, because one of my favorite stories, and I say this all the time, is the Book of Joseph. And so one thing I've learned with Joseph is God would it's hidden seasons in our lives. You know what I'm saying? Where we can see some things, but we don't fully understand what we're seeing. We don't fully understand the direction. Like Joseph had a dream at 17 years old. He didn't get to the place that God had showed him till he was like 38, 39 years old. That was a couple of decades. You know what I'm saying? Like, so you can see it, but that don't mean that you're gonna obtain it right then and there, you know what I'm saying? Because there's some development that needs to go on. But the Bible tells us too, he said, I know the thoughts that I have towards you. He said, I knew you before you were formed in the womb. So I already knew who you was gonna be, because the Bible tells us that he's the author and the finisher of our faith. So he already got our life planned out. A lot of times we may detour, like you were saying earlier about the free will. We may detour and get off course. And you just sit there and look at us like, you know what I'm saying? And so those are some things where we got to turn back around and hear. And like I said earlier, I'm glad that God, it was just some situations that he didn't let me fall into. And so as far as the podcast, one thing that elevates me and that keeps me going is being consistent. You got to show up every day, even when you don't feel like it, even when you got your own problems, you got your own situations or whatever. Because a lot of people don't know what it takes to put into just one episode of a podcast. That's the behind the scenes, the things that you don't get no pats on the shoulder, you know what I'm saying, for people ain't encourage you to sit up there and do a thumbnail, or people ain't encourage you to sit up there and get your show notes together. Those things that's done in private. That's a lot of things that's done in the secret that don't nobody know about. And so it's what, being consistent and keep doing what you know what I'm saying, what you're doing, and then the results will come, man. You know what I'm saying? But like, I don't get too high on it, get too low about it. Yeah, it's a good accomplishment. It makes you feel better about yourself that, okay, what I'm doing is resonating with people. People that I may want to listen to my podcast, or I may thought coming in may be listening to the podcast, ain't the ones listening to it. It's the ones that's out there that I don't know, never met before, but it's something that David has said, or something that CJ has said that has resonated with them, and being a recurring listener, you know what I'm saying, coming back listening to more, and then it's just filtering out into the space, man. And so I just let God do what he do, because none of it is of me. It's all of God, man. You know what I'm saying?
I
That's just
agree.
how I look at it.
Yeah, no, I agree with you. It's just, God brings. I mean, there's no way that you and I would meet. Because I'm not even sure where you live, but like, we probably would never have bumped into each other, anywhere. And that's where, Les Brown always says, and I mention it all the time, that God acts anonymously through people, and
Mhm.
and that's where I'm so blessed with the guests that I've had on my show. Is some of them I would have never reached out, but when I then talk to some people, even some friends who go, "Man, I was listening to that episode, I was watching that episode. Man, that was cool when they said XYZ," and it resonated with me. And that's the real message, because there's also another saying that says, "If you save one person, you save the world." And I know the messages on our podcast, right? That storytelling that you do, that weaving, that's what's important. It's not about me. That's why it's all,
Mhm.
you get on the show, you talk, it's your show on my podcast. That's how I always explain to my guests. Now, what type of so you obviously you have a lot of spiritual insight, and that alone brings you a power that you probably didn't have. I know I didn't have. When I'm not honest with myself, I sit back and I go, God, what do I need to learn so that my spiritual insight helps me guide there, right? I don't hear any words, but I know you just have to realign yourself. How do you realign yourself?
Man, a lot of times I just stay in this, you know what I'm saying? Like a lot of things that I do is based on word. Planting seeds with CJ, based on word. Faith through trial, based on word. Both eyes open, both eyes shut, based through word. The podcast, based through, you know,
Yep.
based through word. I ain't gonna say that I go into it like that, but I've met a lot of people, and you'll be surprised. People will be surprised on how many faith-driven people that we interview on a daily basis. You know what I'm saying? Like people that may get on another podcast, because that podcaster is not talking about anything faith based. It shields them and it holds them back. But man, when they can get on a platform and really be them true, authentic selves, it just opens up a whole nother conversation. And when somebody get on there, because even if it's not going that way, and I may say something like, saying today is the day that the Lord has made, I shall be glad and rejoice in it. Oh man, it opens up something, saying now they like, wait a minute, this is a faith-based podcast. And so now they can let their true feelings out. So now we can really talk. That's when I think the best conversations come out, man. When we can implement the word, implement life in this thing, and then we can go from there. Because as you say, now we're being authentic with ourselves today. Now it ain't no holding back. It ain't no mask on. It ain't being shielded. We open today, like you said earlier before we got on. We're talking as friends now. We're talking as brothers and sisters in Christ. You know what I'm saying? Let's get this thing going. Because me personally, I don't think that you can talk about life without talking about the word. And I don't think you can talk about the word without talking about life, because they both intertwine with each other. Because the word is our life. It's a basic instruction before leaving earth. That is our life.
I agree, and that's where I always enjoy this. And somebody who comes from a Jewish faith, people are like, "What do you mean you're talking about Jesus? What's how?" I get into these conversations. I go, "Look, as far as I know, and again, I mean, no disrespect to anybody, Jesus was Jewish when he died. I used
Mm-hmm.
to say that to the priest because my girls were raised Catholic, and I go, so there's nothing that he said that I would disagree with. Like I'm not disagreeing, and it's one God, one energy, whatever that means for you. So that's why when people on my podcast, I'm not a faith based podcast, but you want to talk about it, man. I'm comfortable with that, and I I always make the joke, and my audience is gonna laugh. Is I always go, I don't not believe in Jesus. Do I haven't been taught that he's the way to God, but I'm like I'm open to it because
Mm-hmm.
I don't want to die and then God goes, "You ignored my son." I don't ignore anybody. I think if you're teaching the right message, and that's what this podcast is about, by being the right message, that's what it really is all about, right? The Ten Commandments are about the right messages, not who owns that. That becomes a human aspect of it. That becomes back to that ego that we were talking about. That I'm very sensitive, and this times I still dive into my ego a little bit. We need to do that a little bit, but not let it control us. And that's where I
Yeah.
did let it control me for many years. I bet you did as well.
Oh yeah. I mean, when you said that, it made me think about being undisciplined. That's what CJ planting seeds with CJ. Discipline builds legacies. And so, for a good majority of my life, I was undisciplined. You know what I'm saying? Like I didn't have everything. every desire, every temptation, anything, like I said earlier, that when the wind blew, I was chasing it, I was after it, that there I was, because I realized now that I was undisciplined. And once you start disciplining yourself, first it start with the mind. If you start disciplining your mindset, then everything else can fall in line. So the things that used to entice me, the things that used to, saying, pull me here and drag me there, it don't have the same sway over me like that, because now I'm grounded in something. You know what I'm saying? I got my feet on solid ground. At first, I wasn't on solid ground, as I made the analogy earlier about the two that built their house, one on the sand and one on the rock. You know what I'm saying? I'm not building my house on the sand no more. So anytime pressure and persecution come about and the winds come, hey, it may shake my foundation, but it ain't devouring it though. It ain't just blowing it totally away. It may be some things I might have to reprioritize, or some things that I may have to rethink, some things that, saying, I may have to do differently or whatever. But the foundation is still there, because I don't care. You get into Christ, you can believe in whatever you want to believe in. Like you say, I'm not trying to make nobody believe what I want to believe. You know what
Right.
I'm saying? Like, but this is my truth. This is how I feel about it. Whether you this or whether you are atheist or whether, hey, that's neither here nor there for
That's on
me.
you, right? We're not here to fight, right? We're not here to fight. This is my
Yeah,
belief, and I'm not here. You look, you want to believe the way you want to believe.
yeah,
Now, but using that faith and that purpose to grow, how do we grow through different difficult seasons? No matter what you do, I don't care. Growing through those difficult seasons because we need to, right? The
yeah.
seed that you talk about, you got to push through the dirt. You got to get the right, nutrition. What do you do to push through your difficult seasons now?
Man, for one, as they say, and I just went when we went to church yesterday, and the pastor said this yesterday. It do matter who you listen to. It
Yep.
do matter who you talk to about certain things. You know what I'm saying? Because everybody don't have your best interest at heart. And we can tend to go out there and tell everybody all our business, and tell them how we really feel about things or whatnot. But if you don't have something in you, like, let's just say, David, you come to me with an issue, and you want my opinion about what you going through. If I don't have nothing in me to give to you, all I'm giving you is me and
Mm.
my thought process. And so in the sense of me giving you my thought process, you come to me with your issues, and then you wind up leaving more messed up than you did when you came before you came to me, because now I turned it around, because I'm giving you all my issues. I'm giving you all my problems. I'm telling you everything that's going on with me, and all the things that I can't get straight. And then you looking around like, man, I came to you because I had an issue here and there. Now I'm more confused than anything, because you ain't said nothing about my issue, and everything was about you. Just think about that for a second. At your jobs and things. I just want to put something on the audience mind for a minute. Just think about that for a second. People are, we so self-centered right now, because a lot of people don't have nothing in them to share with somebody else. You know what I'm saying? We don't have enough empathy. We don't have enough sympathy, you know what I'm saying, to even indulge in somebody else's conversation or whatever else they going through, because I'm too concerned about what I'm going through. I'm too concerned about how I'm gonna get past this. But I'm gonna tell you something like this, and this is what helps me. I know that he said that he would never leave me nor forsake me, nor will he put more on me than I can bear. So with me knowing that, when somebody come to me and talk about a problem, this and that, I'm not giving them me. I'm giving them based on what the word said. I'm giving them based on the knowledge and the wisdom that I have obtained over the time. Now, whether it helps you or not, and a lot of times it don't help, because it'll go in one ear and out the other. Because a lot of times, I'm gonna be honest with you, David, people don't want to hear the truth.
No, 100%. They want to hear. A lot of times, people will come to you to hear the answer they want to hear, and that's the biggest challenge. So that's
Hmm.
why whenever people come to me, even when they tell me something that I don't want to hear, I make sure I have the ears to listen to it. And sometimes I don't have the ears at that moment, right? You tell me something bad that I've done unintentionally, you have to kind of listen to it. But then you also have to recognize, because the only way you grow is through feedback. I don't know. I mean, a lot of my mistakes that I've made in life, I didn't know. Like now I'm much more self-aware than I ever had been. But, still I know what I'm saying because we know in our heart, right? God knows in our heart. We know what's in our heart. I know that I don't want to hurt anybody and things like that. Now, have I said things that have hurt people? 100% guilty as charged.
Guilty.
But that being said, right? But that being said, I had to learn. And if I didn't know that I said something, like in your background, I see you have the Lakers and the Bulls, man. So those are your teams. And needless to say, I'm a New Yorker, and you can see who I want to root for. And by the time this episode's be coming out, we'll have a new champion, and hopefully it'll be a New York champion. But
Mm,
we could have lots of conversation on, right, who's the greatest. I mean, you got Magic in the background, you got Kobe in the background, you got the Bulls. We got Michael, and that's not including anybody else, right?
yeah.
Wilt Chamberlain. I mean, some of those guys. That's the part is when you're open to have that conversations. That's why like now I know what's running online. Who's the greatest? Who's the goat? There is no goat. Because they've all played in different times. The game is more physical now, but there's also a lot more protection. I mean, there's so many different variables. Who is the guy who's all devoted? They're all devoted, man. There is
Hmm.
no the guy. Yeah, there's the guy who scored the most. There's the guy who won the most championships. There's those people, but they also did it with a team. If I didn't pass the ball to you, you're not going to shoot and score. You're not going to be able
Yeah.
to do it. And that's that community that I know you talk about all the time about being around the right community. And you mentioned it earlier as well, is it's who you surround yourself with.
Hmm.
What do you do when you see you're not getting the answers or the results that you want to build that community, the right community?
Uh, Hold on, let me get back to that, man. New
Okay, yeah.
Yorker. I just did an interview with my boy JV yesterday from New York too, and I'm gonna tell you just like I told him, there's no way I can root for the Knicks right now. Boo! Yes, I am a Laker fan. I'm a Laker fan, true and blue, since 1980. So I'm all Magic Johnson all day, every day. In my era, who I think the GOAT is, I love Kobe, but I have to say MJ. I you say you don't know where I'm from. I'm from Gary, Indiana, the home of the late great Michael Jackson. You know what I'm saying? Which got a #1 movie out there right now, man. I just read something they engrossed $855 million with a budget of 155. That's a lot of dough, man. That's a lot of dough, David. Man, there's some money out there. Let's go get it. But no, man. What keeps me, what I'm saying, with the communities, like with me, like I work in a steel mill, right? And a lot of a few people know that I do a podcast, and they know certain things. I've talked to certain people, but I don't just go around telling everybody that, oh yeah, I got a podcast, you got to listen to my podcast, you got to listen to my show, because everybody's not interested in what you're doing, you know what I'm saying? And then a lot of times you can get the scrutiny, or what I'm saying, like say like you go to a church, and you sit there and you go and you trying to you trying to win souls. That's what it's all about, with saying, with being in the kingdom, to win souls for the kingdom. And you go around, you say, oh yeah, I got the best pastor in the world, and we got the greatest church on this side of heaven, and this and that. And then somebody will come to your church, and it may have been a good service that day, but because of the way that you hyped it up, and because what I'm saying, this and that, somebody can walk away like it was all right, but it wasn't all that. You know what I'm saying? So
Yep.
sometimes we gotta be careful on how we display things. You know what I'm saying? Like I can get out there like, yeah, I got a #2 percent podcast. You know what I'm saying? Globally, you gotta check it out. Woo woo woo, and be ego driven. Like yeah, with my chest out. And then somebody go listen to it and say, oh yeah, it was all right, man. But he could have did this and that. I really don't listen to podcasts like that. So, you got to be careful. So you got to know who to talk to, who not to talk to at times. You know what I'm saying? You just got to let nature take its course, man. Let things happen the way it happened. Matter of fact, I tell you this. I'm going to tell you this, David, real quick. I got a cousin. His father, Big Dog, Big Dog Glenn Robinson, you know what
Yep.
I'm saying?
Yep.
#1 draft pick from the Bucks. He got a son, which is my cousin, Trey Robinson. Played for Philly, played
Yep. Yep.
for the Golden State. And so yesterday was his grandmother's birthday. So, we all went to church and everything, we enjoyed the weekend. And I've been trying to get him and the big dog on my pod. Me and Big Dog play basketball together. We played at Roosevelt High School. You know what I'm saying? So I've been trying to get both of them on the podcast. Just like, come on, man, come on, jump on the podcast. Let's get it on. Mind you, I said I've been on here for 3 years, so I've been trying to get them ever since I started because I'm looking at it like, man, if I can get the big dog and then his son, you know what I'm saying? Like it'll boost my podcast, especially in
Sure.
the community. So I never, so he'll tell me that he coming on. So yesterday after church, cuz, so I'm loving what you're doing with the podcast. He say, oh, what's up? I'm waiting on you and your daddy to come on. You know what I'm saying? And so now he say, you know what? He said, I'm at home now. He say, I'm gonna get with you, and then I'm gonna call my dad, and we gonna come on the podcast with you. So man, everything happens in time, man.
Yep.
Like you don't have to press things. You know what I'm saying? Like I'm not chasing anything right now. Like whatever God brings my way, it is what it is, man. I'm just gonna do my due diligence and do the best that I can, put my best foot forward with whatever, what I'm saying, he put in my path, man. That's how I'm looking at
No, 100%, because that's the time happens when the time happens. We can force it as men, as people, but it's always on God's time, and learning these things. We are running out of time on this episode, so I do want you to walk into my little magic garden. And since you talk about planting seeds, I'd love you to plant a seed. You've given us so much during this episode. And in the magic garden, we plant a seed that might grow away. You might have something that's going to hit somebody today. It's going to be like, oh man, that was solid. And some people are going to be like, I got to think about that a little bit.
it.
And they grow, they nurture it, right? It's not just a lightning bolt. What type of advice would you give us today, as one of your parting notes?
Man, it's two that I would, but I think I like this one even more because we've been talking about inspiration, we've been talking about scripture and things of that nature. And I know this one is a scripture that a lot of us know. It say, yea, though I walk through the valley
Hmm.
of the shadow of death, I shall fear no evil because your rod and thy staff, they comfort me. And so what I want to say is to if you really listen to that and if you look at that and you read that, he say we walk through the valley. So in our life, a lot of times, what I'm saying, we're going through some difficult situations right now. We're going through some trying times. We're going through some trials and tribulations, some things that we feel like that, there's no cause. We not gonna get out of this, So it turns into depression, it turns into trauma, it turns into chaos, we because when we have stuff on our plate and we can't handle it, we bring it into the household. You can't have a peaceful household if you bring in chaos into it. It just don't mix. You know what I'm saying? It just don't mix. And so what I want to say is this. He say that we walk through the valley of the shadow of death. He didn't say that we make a house there. Some people making the houses.
Mm.
Some people are building houses in the valley. Hey man, tear that house down and walk through the valley. Yeah, you're gonna have to go through some things. Yeah, you're gonna go through some trying times. Yeah, you're gonna have some pressure. It's not about the pressure gonna come. It's about how you deal with it. Stand on your 10 feet, man. To stand on your 10 toes, man, and live life to the fullest. Live life the way God had meant for you to live it. That's already been mapped out for you. Hey man, tear them houses down and keep on building, man. Build strong, brick by brick.
I love that. Thank you so much. And how can everybody find you and the CJ Moneywise uh, podcast and connect with you?
Man, and at CJ Moneyway, man. At CJ Moneyway. That's where you can find me at. Google me. I ain't hard to find. Or just type in the CJ Moneyway Show or CJ Moneyway Media. That's how you can find me, man. I'll be indulged. If you hit me up, I hit you back. I'm good at responding back to emails and things of that nature. Sometimes it may take a day or two, but I will get back to you.
All right. Well, thank you, sir, for all of the knowledge you gave us, the conversations, the little preaching. Nah, it's all good, right? Because that's what we need to do is refocus, and that's what the podcast is about how each person refocuses. You know, you've given a lot of advice, and it's great advice, and I appreciate your time and the advice you shared with us this morning.
Thank you, David, man. I appreciate it. Anytime, man. Like I say, got to get you on my show next, man. We're gonna make that happen.
All right, we'll make that happen. All right, and as everybody, we always talk about peace and love, right? As your foundation, you have that as a foundation. That's where it all starts. And then when you bring it back, be awesome today. Bring your awesome thoughts and hit your sweet spot. That's where life changes. Thank you so much, and God bless.
God bless. Peace.